All right. Hello, welcome to this video. Thanks for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome and welcome back. If you have, my intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. I'm going to talk a little bit about the week in review, synchronicities of the week, which is usually what I like to do on Synchronicity Sundays. Usually I'm joined by my soul sister, Candace. Unfortunately, I don't think she's going to be able to join us today, so it'll just be me flying solo. And there's so much that I could go into, so many different realms, we'll say. So I'd like to go into a little bit of everything. I'd like to talk a little bit also about some of the human experiences that I've had this week, um, as well as some of the things I've seen synchronistically. I already said that, but also through sessions that I've had with other brothers and sisters. What else? So many places we could go. So let's just start. And I'll do a little light language and a little flow, maybe middle to end is my thoughts. And I'll be doing another video next on some writings, if I have time, that are decoded, so to speak. So lots of ahas, ongoing, incoming, constant barrage, if you will, of energies, frequencies, combined combustion, combusting, busting through the chambers, the display, the frequency sets that we are playing with from one perspective. I guess I want to go into flow right now, but I'm going to try to rein it in. Some of the key words that have come up for me this week, well, there's so many. I'm being guided to write some of these down. So triangulation, and I could play with that a lot. And I'm going to break it down. Break it down again. Whoo. And debris. So the biggest themes are going to be debris and triangulation through the debris. And then we're going to go from there. So it was a rough one for me this week. I'll just be candid and just jump right into it. Rough, yet at the same time not. I mean, I know that's so specific. I like to say when I'm in it, right? I was in the debris. So what I was shown was when we get all these solar activities, I've talked about this a lot, so I'm going to be very brief, is that it stirs the pot. It stirs up a lot of feelings. We can have high anxiety. We can have a lot of incoming information, many aha moments with a heightened sense of productivity, but also a heightened sense of, I already said anxiety, but then this exhaustion can prevail afterwards because, and I'm being guided to play with that, prevail as we see through the veil, as we see through the particulations, the angulations that are being shown to us through the reflection. When I say this, I see like the glass reflection, like looking in the mirror, but then seeing through it and seeing that the mirror isn't even a mirror, right? It's like the matrix. So basically what happens is these particles, this incoming flare, these flashes light us up. And then the challenge can be letting ourselves down easily. And that's a play on words. We have a tendency to think, oh, I've let myself down. And we have a tendency to judge when we feel down. When we have these heightened like bursts and we're lifted up and then we're dropped down uncomfortably back into normalcy, the normal reality that we're used to seeing from one perspective, it can feel discombobulating. It can feel deflating. And then from another perspective, sometimes we drop even lower than that. Sometimes we've had these ahas that are so spectacular and so massive. Other times we have the same thing, but they're massively jarring. They jar us so much to our core, right? I'm hearing solar plexus. Through the plexi glass, they shatter our view on reality. so magnificently that it has a magnification on all of the shadow. Does that make sense? Like, it's that pendulum swing. And that can take us into so many different directions. Sometimes, in order to avoid dropping into what it is that we're seeing as we swing on that pendulum, we just get stuck on that swing, back and forth and back and forth. Sometimes we're required to jump off that swing and to witness. Can I get a witness? Happy Easter, by the way. It's Easter Sunday. I could go into so many different realms with that, but observe what it is that we're witnessing. So sometimes we're on this pendulum swing and we see it, we witness it, we're looking. Other times we're observing. For me, that's deeper meaning. Doesn't mean that's really what it is deeper, but for me, I'm just playing from my own word play. I'm hearing observation, but I'm hearing obsave, like I'm hearing, oh, and then as I say observe, I'm hearing serve, like out of body experience. Like sometimes we have to see from a higher perspective what it is that we're serving, what it is that's serving us. And we come into this place in space where we can, again, be the center of the tornado. This week, I will say that I was not always in the center of the tornado. I was definitely swept up in the debris field. So the field is what's all around us, this interaction, things we interact with, our environment. But I'm playing with the words on this. I was caught up in the field, the feel of the field. And that put me into a place of, gosh, I'm hearing higher density spin. So if I were to play with that, I mean, I could go into so many different angles. Send me an angel. But essentially, higher density from what I'm playing with right now means more stuff. Yes, it's a higher frequency, perhaps, but it's also a bigger amount of information. So when we move in this density and it's got more stuff, what I'm being shown is we've moved into this space with the help from the sun. We're purging with all the moon. We had the full moon today and yesterday and the day before. Like I always feel the energies around that 3-day cycle. A lot of emotions, right? With this heightened solar activity and all the planetary alignments. So it combines, right, to unbind. Yet what I felt myself doing was witnessing all of it and not being sure how to observe it, not recognizing when I wasn't recognizing what I was serving. So I found myself falling into habit patterns of lack of trust, habit patterns of wanting something or feeling the need to follow through with something that no longer perhaps fit what my highest and greatest needs are now. Kind of entertaining a little bit of that victim mentality, if that makes sense. Poor me, this is happening because why can't I? I deserve. Those are all, for me, a representation of a victim mode. And when I say victimize, I hear victimize. It's like I'm IDing, I'm surmising what it is that I, right? And really, that was an old habit pattern, feeling that I was wronged. You know, this isn't right. I should be, I deserve. So all of these things came up for me this week. And I'm going to share an analogy from a very 3D example of what I'm talking about. But before I do that, so what I'm shown consistently is that all of this stuff comes in and it stirs the pot and all of this debris is flushed out. And here we are standing in the center of it. But sometimes we're not in the center. we're stuck in the asteroid belt, so to speak, flying around with all that debris, not even realizing that we got pulled into it. And one of the things I was shown, I was guided to play with a little bit was the definition of debris, because I was shown, where is the debris within me, so that I can finally fly free and not get caught up in the density. And that was kind of one of the themes. The density holds nutrition and value, and it gives us opportunity. It holds a vibration, it holds sound, right? So if I play with this just for a second, we'll just go here. Am I recording? Yes. Debris. Debris. From obsolete. Breakdown. Oh, so I guess the word debraiser is no longer. So it's funny that it comes from a word that's no longer. I think that's what they're saying by it's obsolete. It's no longer here. It's breakdown. Break it down again. So scattered pieces of waste or remains. So what happens is we're in this, so to break down, okay, so let me go back just for a moment here and play. Whew. So I love the fact that it's like loose natural material consisting especially of broken pieces of rock. So a lot of the stuff that's been showing up for us has been, what is rock? It's a structure, right? And it holds minerals and materials, but it's hard. It's an encasement. It's a rigid structure. And so what my guidance team was kind of showing me is, look, this is all breaking down. So the debris, and I could go into so many different layers here. Where's the emotional debris that we've been hanging on to in our bodies? Where is the debris in our thought patterns, habits? What do we believe about ourselves? That was one of the biggest things that came up for me this week. And how are we navigating what this debris field is that we're moving through? So oftentimes I've referred to the center of a tornado. If you put yourself in the center of a tornado, there's nothing in there. It's just this tunnel, or I'm sorry, this, funnel. But it's also, I'm seeing like a tube, and all the stuff is swirling around, right? You're in the center of this funnel where it's like the eye of the storm, but you can see or witness, can I get a witness to all of the things that are spinning around? So sometimes we get stuck in that, which is debris. Sometimes we get sucked into that debris. But what I was shown is not just one tornado. There's many different debris fields right now, all within a bubble, within a bubble, within a bubble, within a subset, within a subset, within a subset. So we get through one debris field and there's another one, because everything is scattered, yet at the same time. So that was another piece, is scattered pieces of waste. So scattered and pieces means it was all very coagulated and stuck at one time. And from one perspective, that was the reality, the structure that we were held within. And then it's poof, we're blown apart. And I always bring up the labyrinth, because there's a scene in the labyrinth where she's dancing with the Goblin King, and it's in a bubble, which is in a dream. And then she breaks the glass and it shatters, and all the pieces of that dream go flying. And then she wakes up in her bed, yet she's still inside of that bubble of that reality, even though it's a different layer. So that's kind of what I've been shown is going on with us. So it can be very disorienting, is the word that's come through. It can be very disorienting to go through these highs and lows of these solar influxes, but remembering that we're no victim. This isn't, oh, I'm having this because of that. This is going to happen no matter what, from one perspective. The solar flares are happening. So am I going to let them boss me around? No, I'm the boss of me, right? So drink more water. I got to get grounded. I got to do some movement. And if I'm not, well, this is how I'm going to feel. And I might feel that way anyways. Not being in a place of judgment or blame or, you know, so I could go into so many different layers. But what I was shown was what's happening is this debris comes up. People are in the process sometimes of deflecting it. I'm just going to push that away. I see it. I witness it. But it's also coming into a place of observation. I don't know if I said this already, but the deeper layer for me is observing. Oh, I did. Out of body observing. What am I serving? What's serving me? What's no longer serving me? Right? And observing it out of body, in our bodies. So we're seeing it from a fluid and grace-filled presence that isn't necessarily just physical. It's beyond that. And so this visual of what I'm being shown is this is how it is right now. This is the way of it. But the way in which we navigate it is going to be different at different times. And I was shown that a lot of people kind of had it all figured out. Okay, this is how I'm going to navigate. I'm going to do this, this, and that. And they have this directional course all set up. And then all of a sudden, plop right in the center of their directional flow is a big old fat rock, big old piece of debris, a big old energy cyst, what they call it in cranial sacral, where you fall. And I feel like this is relevant, so I'm going to bring it up. And I'm just going to describe my version of what I see. If you fall, you hit your elbow. That isn't just pain or a clump of stuck energy that's now lodged in the elbow. It also radiates, and maybe it goes out and it stops here. And then there's some that get stuck here, and maybe it goes all the way into the hand. So now you don't just have that big rock or energy cyst, it radiates out into smaller debris. Does that make sense? So at some time or another, those different pieces that came from one big rock that's now scattered throughout the arm, for example, may need to be addressed, integrated. And sometimes that takes us acknowledging them, observing them, recognizing them, whatever words we want to use, so that they can be dissolved. I always see the rock eater from Neverending Story. Eat those rocks, right? We can then utilize those mineral resources to be repurposed, to be resourced, to go back into source, because everything comes from that originally anyways, from one perspective. They can then be integrated or dissolved so that they no longer hold the density that they once did. Now I'm using density in several different formats because density can be dense, like heavy, but density isn't always a bad thing. It can also be full of information. And that's kind of what's happening is a lot of these rocks that are floating around us are full of valuable bits of information, memories, reflections, emotions, distortions that we're now able to observe. We see them floating around. Rather than deflecting them, I don't need to deal with that. I've already dealt with that. Well, no, it's showing up for us again for a reason, or maybe just to say, listen, here I am again. What do you want to do? And what I was hearing is instead of deflect, redirect. So we may just have to change our course a bit, navigate a little differently to what I'm seeing is like seeing that thing in front of us and kind of us just like walking around it like, okay, I see that you're right here. I'm just going to change my course and not get pulled into that debris field. So then the question becomes, well, isn't that the same thing as deflection? You're ignoring that big rock, you're going around it. Not necessarily, because you can also see that big rock and know what's inside of it because you've already been there before. Does that make sense? Wait a minute, this is the rock of not trusting myself. This is the victimization rock. Now I'm at a different place in my field of reality. Here it is again. Oh, I'm being guided to draw this. I will in a second. I see it. I'm going to change my course a little bit so that I don't run headfirst into it. But sometimes we're required to run headfirst into it to break it up, and it scatters. But guess what? This is also what I've been shown. We've already done that. So a lot of these big rocks that are in front of us now are actually a smaller piece of the bigger origination of that density rock. Does that make sense? So 5 years ago, we might have just boom, gone head into that rock. It exploded, scattered debris everywhere, and we were able to move in and navigate. Well, now what's happened is that debris is circling back around for us. And now we're able to see each and every little piece, but they're still rocks. And we're able to even break those down into smaller micro bits so that we can really see even deeper than we were able to before. And then what happens is every time we move out farther and farther and farther from one perspective, which means going deeper and deeper and deeper inward, that then gets farther and farther away, and it gets absorbed, reabsorbed back into whatever we want to label it as. I see it as dissolved. Gets utilized, repurposed is the word that comes through. This is a play on words because then we are repurposing our purpose. We're changing our directional flow a little bit. And sometimes these rocks are there that we exploded them already. We busted through them, but here they are again, and they might be showing up for us like they're in our way, but actually they're in our way. This is the way of it. They're in it. They're in our way, the way that we are developing and handle it the way that we are working through this. Now we're a different person. Now we're able to see more. Because when we exploded it that first time, we powered through that rock, maybe we were able to see it as, let's say, we'll use the example of victim. Boom, we blew that rock up. I'm not a victim. I'm empowered. I'm in integrity, blah, blah, blah. And here we are again, and somebody does something to us from one perspective, or let's say they don't give us what it is that we feel we deserve. They're not offering us the value that we feel that we are worth. Maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a loved one, maybe it's a family member. We could go into so many different angles here. So we're given in that opportunity. Oh my goodness, I'm hearing, take a chance, take a chance on me. Do my very best. What's that song? God, that's an old song. ABBA, A-B-B-A. Oh boy, here we flow. So let's play with this a little bit. But anyways, we're given that chance to see it, to take a chance on ourselves and go, I don't need you to see that value in me. Because if I need you to see that value in me and I'm blaming you for not, poor me, then I go back into that debris field of victim mode. Does that make sense? And I could go into so many different layers here. So I'm going to do two things. I'm just going to pause this just for a moment. Oh, goodness gracious, you guys. I just have to laugh. This is where you trust in your messages that come in. And all mine are so wacky that sometimes I'm like, really? Is that? And then I look it up. I'm like, oh, it's a thing. All right. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about I talked about the debris field. And what I was shown is, let's see, and I was going to go into ABBA as well. So we'll do that in just a minute because it has several meanings. And I've actually written about it before, and I can't remember what subject I was on, but I'll get to it, I'm sure, in a different video. So this is where I was shown, right? You've got so I'll put my ring light right there in the middle. My little guy. So this is the big old rock, right? That's your debris field, and those are all the rings going out around the body. Let's say the rings of reality, the bubbles of awareness, the ripple, the field, okay? And I'm going to blow up this rock. So what happens is now this rock moves out of that line and it goes into the other realms. And now it's, let's say, I'll put little guys here. So now it's blown out. So it was in this first field, right? I blew it out, and now it's in the second field, and it's in 3 pieces, not 1. And now that's circling around in my field, just like the asteroid belt. So when I go through it, I'm now moving in that field, and now I have these pieces that are floating around me. And now I've changed my directional course, maybe, and I go up. But now this little guy's right in front of me. See me going up, and now that's a piece, and that's 1, 2, and 3. So that's a piece of the 1, 2, and 3. So what happens is now I've got those 3 circling around me, and let's say I explode out those 2. And they explode out, and that's just 1 rock, by the way. There might be 20 of those. There might be infinite numbers of big rocks. And then we go into the next layer and the next layer, and there's little particles there. By the time I get out to that last ring, from one perspective, and we're just using this 1 rock as an example, I have all these little baby particles floating out around. But because it's a ring and it goes around infinitely, it's like when you go through, gosh, I'm trying to think. So it's a spin, but it's a spiral, right? So now I come back around into that spiral, and here it is again. But I'm from a totally different perspective. I've taken a totally different course of action, and I'm a completely different person. And I'm now out here in the bigger space of things. Yet at the same time, I'm going within. It's like a toroidal donut, right? Or a strange loop. So as it spins around, I'm spinning, 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 spinning. There it is. Oh, spinning, 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 spinning. There it is. Oh, spinning, spinning, spinning. There it is. So I'm able to observe it now rather than just crash through it. And I'm not going to deflect it. I'm going to take that piece and go, oh, that's interesting. I'm observing it. I'm feeling into it. And I'm allowing myself to dissolve it, or perhaps not dissolve it and do change my direction. And maybe it does move off into the field and dissolves into a different, there's different ways of looking at it. But essentially it comes around and around again. It's like the asteroid belt. It's like when we're in Earth and we're in we're back in the, when we go through the meteor showers, we're moving through an asteroid belt. So it's time again for us to be going through this particular meteor shower. So here are rocks that we're looking at. Those are our meteor showers, and they're being lit up by our magnetic what's it called? Atmosphere, right? As they come into our atmosphere, they light up and they either burn up or they give us a good whack and we can then explode them. It's easier though if they come into our field of awareness and they light up for us to see it, witness it, and allow it by using our heart space, by expanding out our field of awareness to then absorb the shock. There comes a point sometimes though that we have so much debris in our field that I'm hearing get rocked or be the rock. Blow through the rock. So it's like the rock eater, right? I said that before from Neverending Story. I have these big strong hands, but I couldn't hold on. So it's kind of the same idea. It's like we have all this debris in our field, and sometimes our atmosphere gets rocked to where our magnetic field then goes, or either is, well, we could go so many different ways, but I'm talking about absorbing that energy. So sometimes our absorption rate isn't necessarily enough from one perspective, to absorb all of it and integrate it all at once. And so sometimes those energy cysts, asteroids, whatever we want to call it, get stuck back in our field until we can be in a place where we can observe them. And sometimes that means that we have to get sick. We have to do a cleanse. We may have to take a break from a relationship or a friendship. It might mean that we need to take a day off work because we're so overwhelmed by what it is that's in our field. And that takes me into being of this in this world, but not of it. You know what Jesus talks about, being that it's Easter. I guess I'll throw in a little Jesus quote there, although I didn't quote it exactly. So teaching, right? It's like, okay, I'm witnessing this. Can I get a witness? But observing it again is that for me, it represents a deeper level of observing it. OB, out of body. What am I serving? Is it serving me? Am I serving it? Like, am I serving a greater of service space for myself? Or am I serving the rock? Am I serving victimhood? Am I serving judgment? Am I serving blame? Is that what I'm in service to? Is that blame and shame serving me? It did it one time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there in my field for me to witness. And I wanted to go in a little deeper because I'm being guided to share that sometimes it is just there for us to witness. And we can redirect our flow, see it, and it may not be something that we need to dive into and explode out anymore because it may no longer hold that same charge. It can just be a piece of debris that we don't necessarily have to go through. The first time we had to go through it with force, and now we're being guided to be a little softer about it and to really focus. So I'm being guided to go into that. Well, Carrie, okay, if it's in our field, then aren't we supposed to do something about it? And from one perspective, sometimes just witnessing it and being in a place of observation, taking it to that next level of going, does this serve me? Is this mine? Do I need to own this? Is this something I need to dive into? Or can I just see that it's there? And by us recognizing that, it dissolves it. And then we redirect our field. It's no longer of import. We're no longer importing it. It's no longer part through our portal, right? It's just there for us to see it. I'm hearing seen and be seen. So the funny thing is when I said Abba, take a chance, take a chance, take a chance on me. It's actually in the New Testament, it's Abba, Father, he said. So we're referring to God. All things are possible to you. I would say it's all things are, I think one quote is all things are possible in you, but all things are possible to you. I love that. Wow. Okay. Sorry, I had to regroup here. So Abba, when we're talking about this, right, it's talking about Father, but it's also talking about, I'm sorry, I'm back on debris. Father said, all things are possible to you. So basically, I'm seeing so many levels. Abba is also a quatrain, which is a whole other spin for me because of the writings that I've written. Enclosed rhymes. So I could go into so many layers with that as well. Boy, where do I go with that? Let's come back to that later. How about that? I also found it funny that there is an abracadabra. Okay. There's also an Abba, and this was symbolic for me. Well, I don't know where that came from. Give me a second. Bear with me. Oh, a spectrometer. Okay, so if we look at what a spectrometer does, it measures neutron decay, and it talks about neutron beta decay angular parameters. Wow, I think that's really funny because I could go into two different realms here with this, and I'm going to kind of go into this. Oh my goodness, you guys, this is so funny. I will go into this on another flow. So I follow these rabbit trails sometimes for me, because what they do is they essentially give me a multi-dimensional perspective on what's going on. So I'm talking about a very keep it simple starseeds kind of approach on this. It's like, look, there's debris in our field. It's emotions, it's circumstances, it's people, it's places, it's things, it's body issues, whatever that rock is that we've exploded is now floating around in our field, and it's coming back around for us to be able to continue to work through it. In a nutshell, that's what it looks like. A shell, neutrons. Anyways, so what else am I trying? Oh, redirection, triangulation. So what I was shown is it's assisting us in setting up and triangulating through our trials. And we could say our errors, which is a different, I keep seeing the error sign. It's like you go to a website, but you can't get there. It's not found, because we have to redirect our flow of energy and re-triangulate based on our new course and our new course of action, based on our new chords and how we interact with the field, and how it is that we see, witness, and observe what it is that we are interacting with. Interacting, entering into, but interacting with, acting out into our new dimension, pattern, blueprint, reality, whatever we want to label it as. Does that make sense? So I'm going to share one example, and then I'm going to go into flow. So I locked my key in my car this week. My key's in my car. And some of the things I went through personally were the victim space, which I already explained, but also the lack of trusting my intuition. I get messages, you guys, and the messages that come through, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this too, because we are really walking between worlds. And for those of you out there watching this video who are really tuning into your empathic abilities, your psychic abilities, your telepathic abilities, your whatever abilities it is that you're accessing, coming across, recognizing, I'm hearing terraforming. So that has to do with our body, our cross, terra, in this era that we are forming in this new reality, this blueprint, anyways, on Earth as Earthlings. Squirrel. So what happens is it's difficult sometimes to channel all of that into as a walking portal, a walking conduit, right? Because that's what we are. We are the portals. We are the grids. We are the gatekeepers. We are all of those things. Let me go back to ABBA. All things are possible to you. So we are those things. So when we get lost in this debris field, we can sometimes get pulled into all these versions of us. I'm here, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this, and this is in a lower reality, and this is in a higher reality. One's in a more dense, but again, not being in a place of judgment when we drop down into those layers, because sometimes that's where the nuggets are. That's where the gold is. It's under, it's the subterranean, it's the shadow. But that isn't all that we are, right? So getting lost in those tunnels are really what we want to look for is temporary, because I'm hearing temporal manifestation. So the temporary to the all. And it's that tempo, finding that flow so that we recognize, whoa, I've been down here a long time. I've really been in the muck and the mire. It is time to see what else, this isn't working. So what do I need to do to tune into a different realm? It doesn't have to be a higher realm. It doesn't have to be But if we're still hearing the same tune, it means we haven't tuned our instrument to hear what else the universe is playing. And I'm being guided to go back to the spectrometer. So I will. Guess we're in flow now. Before I do that though, I want to just share the example of my key. So I didn't trust, I was not following my intuition several times this week in conversation with what I was seeing. I get these strange messages, and essentially the messages for me are like pictograms. They're, oh boy, see, this is an example. I'm in such flow right now. There's so much coming in, all of that light that's coming in to shine on different realms. It's difficult sometimes for us to piece together those pieces into a whole unit, a whole unification. And this is where people can get lost in these other realms. And from my perspective, one of the things that my guidance team talks about is we're meant to be in the space of wholeness and unity and oneness on earth. And if we weren't on earth, then we would be someplace else. And yes, we are someplace else because we are multidimensional beings. From one perspective, there is a parallel version of us someplace else. But from another perspective, we are only multidimensional beings in the sense of our consciousness. But from another perspective, if we are in these parallel realities, or we are in a future version of us connecting with us now, or we're looking at our past, getting pulled into all of those different debris fields is not really what we came here to do, right? From my perspective. And if that's something that somebody believes they came here to do, then that's their journey. But what we're being guided to do is rein it all in under one crown that's here on earth now, right? And in doing that, we pull together and unify with ourselves. And we're not split and schismed, those broken pieces of glass everywhere. We're pulling those pieces back together in the puzzle. So certain things that we think we should have, or certain things we think we have been, certain memories of our past lives coming back online, or seeing somebody that we may think we've been with in a past life, that's not always relevant for this journey. So sometimes walking between worlds can be challenging for people to hold it together. You know, it's challenging for me sometimes. And that's part of the reason my guides are like, what if we showed it all to you? Poof, right? So we're given from one perspective what we can handle. And if we are recognizing that we can't handle, there's a key word here. Boy. So it's recognizing that maybe that's too much right now. Maybe I need to not ignore it, not deflect it. I give signals to my guidance team when I'm really kind of in that place. So if I'm working with a client and I'm really in this healing mode, but I recognize I've only got 5 minutes left to finish what I need to do in that moment, in order not to get lost in it, I will send a picture to my highest aspect. You call it a higher self. I like to connect in with my highest aspect. Oh, boy, I could go into that layer too. A lot of people say, well, there's a higher self, then there's a higher self, then there's your oversoul. And yes, but from my perspective, I'm just tuning into my higher aspect, my highest self, just as one, as one, as one. And not get caught up in all those other schisms of myself. I know there's this idea that your higher self is right above you, so they're going to be the closest and they're going to know more. But then what about your guides? When do you call on your guides? And how about the angels? And then what about your ancestors? And then it can be a lot. And again, it can be overwhelming. And I love to play in all realms and all fields. But what I've learned over the years of being pulled in and schismed into those different places and spun out and unable to disconnect from those from one perspective and connect back into here and now on earth, I had to just be like, all right, look, as one. Because once I do that, and by the way, Team Light, I got to give props to Ryan on that one. I listened to him years ago and he was like, as one, as one. I think he did was it, sorry if I'm botching this, but it was clear. So clear out all the stuff, the debris, adjust, align as one. Those are his, I used those years ago from a video that I watched him do. So that's Ryan on Team Light. He's on YouTube. He does a lot of galactic stuff. By the way, I share a lot of different people and other teachers that I resonate with. That doesn't mean I'm 100% on the bandwagon with everything they talk about. Doesn't mean that they're on the bandwagon with everything I talk about. I dip in and out and I go with what I feel resonates. So I have a lot of people I listen to, and a lot of people I can use that nugget. It can be someone that I don't agree with on anything, yet they might have one good thing that I'm like, ooh, that resonates. That's a great idea. So we do that, and not being in a place of, oh, well, they're not 100% right. No one is 100% right, because what is right? It's an angle. So what are they plugging into, right? We wouldn't be here if we were perfect. So anyways, although we're already perfect from one perspective. Okay, I digress. But so you can see how easy it is, especially if you've watched my videos for a while, to get pulled into all of these different places and spaces of information. But it's really important to bring it back in. So I know those different layers. Just to keep it simple for me, I just ask to connect with source energy, and through that, my highest aspect. Whatever that's labeled as, oversoul, monad, I don't care. Just pull it in, rein it in. And then in that, I feel that I'm connecting in to all of those aspects of me. And whatever is most needed for me in the now moment will come through in the highest levels of love, light, unity, benevolence for all, that kind of thing. And that's a whole other video talking about the shadow. And okay, so reining it in, it's also like, I'm not going to, like I've said before, go through the store speaking light language to the checker. That is an aspect that I'm connecting into. I might hear it going on, but I'm going to go, okay, well, I'm obviously processing something. I'm working through some upgrades. So I'll send a picture. That's where I was at. And I will show and I learned this from my dear friend and sister, Sid. She said, I sent they communicate to me through pictures. Now you might be more of a hearing, kind of feeling, whatever it might be. You could do any picture you want. For the complicated version that I am in some ways, sent a picture up of me sitting at a school desk with a journal, a pen, an open journal that's blank, in the dark. And sometimes I'll use symbols associated with that. I'll have a watch on. I'll have a stop clock. I'll turn a light on. I'll turn a light off. I'll have a flashlight in my hand. I'll send it up. I'll be writing. I'll take the pen. I'll put it down and close my journal. I mean, there's lots of different symbols that I use to communicate, to really say, all right, stop. You might just see a stop sign come up, and that might work for you. Play with it. But if you have a song, for example, playing over and over again in your head, sometimes that's a message from your guides, and sometimes it's just a distraction. So I will literally say, I'll write down the song, and then I just say, stop. I clear all music from my ears and from my space. I clear and reset. I integrate that. I'm done. Stop playing. Because sometimes we need to acknowledge these rocks, these synchronicities, these messages. Otherwise, they're just going to circle back around in that debris field. By the way, the debris field isn't always a bad thing, right? Sometimes it's a really juicy nugget that we missed the first time around. And that's a whole other spin, you guys. That rock might have been like, yay, you did it. This is a milestone. Be aware, acknowledge where you've come from. Now it's coming around again to show us. And if we're too busy trying to jump into that next layer, we miss it. And then guess what? Eventually we're going to get sucked back in again so that we can notice how far we've come. That might be our rock. Not acknowledging and being present with who we are right now versus who we were 6 months ago, 6 years ago. Okay. I know I went off into 5 different tangents there, but that's part of what this is all about, is being this multidimensional being, but reining it all in so that we're whole and unified and not schismed and pulled into these other realities that we aren't there physically. Now, granted, we are there, but that would be in another physical form. So that's our responsibility in that physical form on the planet Venus, even though those beings may not be in physical form. You get where I'm going with this. Whatever form or construct or version of us that's in Venus or in what are some other places I've had people tell me that they're from? Wherever you're from, that's not where you are now. Although you are. So some people can do all of that and rein it all in and be in that space. Some people are not acknowledging that that isn't what they should be doing because it's not the best for them. So if we're in all these different places, it can cause us to be unhealthy. It can cause us to feel exhausted. It can cause us to feel totally high to where we're not. We're disconnected, right? So all of these are things to pay attention to. This is also a synchronicity for the week that I've been seeing. So when we're having those things come up, it's something telling us that something's not in balance. So for me, I got really sick and I had to call all those aspects of myself back. And even though I'm tuning into myself as a multidimensional being, I'm primarily doing it here on Earth now. Even though in dream time I might go lucid or whatever it is. That's a whole other video. So what I mean by that is we have some people that are deflecting the rocks, the emotions here on Earth, by bilocating themselves or trilocating themselves and spending most of their time on a different planet, even though their physical body is here now. So in that case, I'm being guided to talk about this. What I was shown is we are not the avatar necessarily of that particular version of us. There's a higher avatar from one perspective, even though we are the avatar. Oh my goodness. All right, let's not go there. But I think maybe some of you guys get what I'm putting down. So I have a version, I'm very connected to Andromeda. We'll just say I got some Andromedan flavor. I've got some Syrian energy that I like to connect into, that I feel woven in with. I have, but that doesn't mean that's where my consciousness is right now that's directing me here. Does that make sense? From one perspective it is, but from another perspective, I'm a human in a skin suit, in a technology, in a bone matrix that is here. So even though I can project my consciousness into other places, or that's being projected into me, I still have to focus on here. Otherwise, I'm pulled into all these other realms, but I'm already over there taking care of business over there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Do you see where I'm going with that? So anyways. Or maybe I'm not, and that's just a memory of a version of me that was there that I'm tapping into now. Ooh, so much fun stuff. Okay, let's talk a little bit about handle, pictometer, and spectrum. Okay. Oh, one more practical story. So I locked my key in the car. I wasn't present. Why did that happen? I was projecting myself into the future. I was thinking about sessions that I had. I was thinking about a conversation I had to have with someone that I wasn't looking forward to, blah, 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 blah. I get out of my car, and in that moment, I kind of knew that maybe I realized that I was going to lock my key, that it was a probability that I would be locking my key in the car. So I grabbed my things. I think I thought about it for a second. I got out of the car. I hit the lock button, which I usually do with my key, but I didn't. I hit it with my finger. And as I was closing the door, I knew that I had left my key in the car. And then click, beep. And I turn and look, and there's my key on the front seat. Now, this is symbolic for me. So let's talk briefly about that. Then I'm going to go into a little flow, and then I'm going to end this video. In that moment, I knew that I had known that that was something that I was probably going to do because I wasn't being present. My intuition was trying to get my intention, my attention, my inner tension relieve all tension by letting go and being present. Anyways, trying to get my attention, to pay attention so that that wouldn't happen. It was nagging at me. Intuitively, once I closed the door, I just knew. That's our intuition, you guys. It's talking with us. It's subtle. I work with people all the time that want to know this or know that or tune into this and tune into that, but they're so used to thinking about the future and what it is that they don't have or that they've done in the past, which is what I was doing when I locked my key in the car, that's difficult to tune into the intuition because it's a subtle nudge, right? Sometimes it is a big loud noise that says, don't turn right. Sometimes that's just noise. And we have to learn to differentiate and to discern. Okay. So as I looked through my car door window, I couldn't open the door, even though I could see through the window to get my key, that I needed to unlock my door from the outside, but the key was on the inside. You guys see where I'm going with this? And in that moment, I was observing this going on within me. And I was just like, this is hilarious. This is so symbolic. Yet, I also was observing frustration, the fact that I might have now be late to my follow-up session, the fact that, oh no, am I gonna have to call my husband to bring me my spare set of keys? He's gonna be like, I told you so, because he's always telling me, don't, make sure you zip up your purse so you don't lose stuff. He's so funny, he keeps me so grounded. Carrie, don't forget this, did you forget that? I'm like, I'm talking about being grounded, you guys, because there's oftentimes I'm not. Sometimes it's helpful to have a partner or spouse that helps you do that. And in my case, it's very, very helpful. Okay, so I'm having all these thoughts and I'm just like, now I could have gotten pulled into that debris because now here's a rock. What's this rock that's in front of me? Not listening to my intuition, projecting myself into the future, not being present. And now here I am judging myself about how silly that was, upset with myself for now having to involve possibly AAA or my husband, which of course I was like, I'm not going to involve my husband in this if I don't have to. The ripple effect that that might have, you know, what kind of mood is he, what's he experiencing today? What's that going to do for his schedule? Where's that going to throw him off if he stops what he's doing to help me out? See where I'm going with this? I mean, it's a literal ripple effect. It's a wave. What's that going to do for my client? You know, what if we can't have the healing session? Maybe they really needed it today. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be, and that's why I locked my, I mean, you guys, it is infinite. So I just stopped, sat with it. Then there was that other aspect too, that's you're in that space where that's like the icing on the cake when you've already had a crazy week. And there was a little piece of me that just wanted to sit down on the floor with my head against the car and just, I'm done, cry, I'm done. Because it was that intense energetically of a week. So I observed all those schisms of myself and I was like, wow, just from that one moment. Now, moving forward, I also saw a fox this week, and the fox was all about this. I'm gonna share with you something funny. So oftentimes we ask for things to show up for us. So I do in my animal card readings all the time. I pick my animal cards either out of a deck or on my phone. It's so right on, it's so accurate. And I'm always doing my animal cards. And usually I'm very aware of my surroundings. Usually I don't lock my keys in the car, but having said that, I saw a fox this week. And do you know, I didn't even think about it the next day to tie that in with my reality. And I ignored it. I was excited about it. My husband and I were in awe over it. It was so cool. And then it was at nighttime. Then the next day he's like, oh, I saw it, you know, I saw it on our camera, blah, blah, blah. That was kind of cool. And then I went and had a conversation with someone that I should have utilized fox energy, which is subtlety, which is camouflage, which is softness, which is being kind of sneaky, sly as a fox, right? But I didn't. Instead, I got pulled into the debris of the conversation, even though I probably would have picked cards that morning. So my point is, sometimes we get really big signs from the universe, but they're not coming in the way that we think they should look. And so we ignore them. or we forget about them, or they're so subtle that we don't notice them. So fog showed up in my field twice, and I didn't utilize that message from my guides in order to help me with something that it would have been helpful for. But I see it now. And now I acknowledge that I see it all as I look back in my week. So this is where it's so important for us to look back on ourselves, not down on ourselves, but look at the previous week. Remember the magical moments that we had and the moments that were not so magical, but we still seem to find magic in. This week was intense and emotional and had a lot of ups and downs for me. But I'm now sitting in this place, making this video with you now in a completely different space than I was 4 days ago when I was in it, in the debris field. And now I see all of that from a different perspective. And I can now share my experience with you guys so that maybe hopefully moving forward, whoever listens to this might go, okay, I can pull this in. I might be schismed in this area. Oh, that debris, that rock is a bunch of pieces of an old rock, right? So if we look again, one more time, just for debris, scattered pieces of waste or remains. So the remains are, it's still here. It's a remain, it's a remainder, it's a reminder, right? Okay, I think I'm gonna end on that note. That was kind of flow. So I'll probably end on that note. I will just say the spectrometer briefly. So this puts me into a flow. And then I go off into these because I can see the parallels. I can see the meaning that the universe is showing me behind what the physical form is, if that makes sense. And we're all being invited to see that. So that's something else that came up. But just so we know, because I was playing with that word spectrometer, triangulation and redirection. A spectrometer is a scientific instrument used to separate and measure spectral components of a physical phenomenon. It's talking about spectral components being mixed. You guys, if I go into this, it takes me into so many different, so maybe I'll just go into this in a different, well, we are spectrometers. It's talking about the intensity of light. They show the intensity of light as a function of wavelength or frequency. The different wavelengths of light are separated by refraction in a prism or by diffraction of a diffraction grating. Oh my gosh, okay. So I guess I could go into this. It's talking about a spectral signature. It reveals the composition. You guys, I'm not going to go into that right now, but I'll just say that this puts me in just such a flow with so many different things. And what I'm being shown is that I'm seeing things from a completely different station, if you will, than I did 3 or 4 days ago, which also carries me out into a greater spectrum. When I say spectrum, I see a rainbow. Before I was seeing everything in a dark gray with a little bit of light. Then I was seeing everything in like a blue frequency. Now I'm in the rainbow because I can see that color and I can see that color and I can see this shadow and I can see this light. So now I'm seeing things because I'm in a different subset. I'm in a different bubble within a different bubble. I'm in a different place of reflection and refraction. I'm in a different place of analysis. I'm able to spectral analysis. I'm able to analyze the frequencies from a different schematic. My schematic has changed than it was when I started off on this journey. In fact, it's different than it was a week ago. So now I'm able to look into this space and take in everything as a different observer, a different observatory. As I say observatory, I hear observatorus. I'm seeing a torus field that is now taking on a different, I'm seeing how big is it? It's bigger. bigger, 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 bigger. So last but not least, I will share also, I really had to move some energy around this week. I literally had to drop everything, go outside and dance. What does my moving energy around look like? I've done some videos. You guys can go back and look. I've done some outside. Light language comes through, toning comes through. I do a lot of hitting my feet on the ground, very Native American, shaman type dances. Yoga comes through, Tai Chi comes through, whatever I'm guided to do, I just do it in a movement and a flowing pattern. And that resets my pendulum, which turns it into an equilibrium, which turns it into a center of the tube that then allows me to be the center of the tornado, that then allows me to create my spin and access my different points within, because all of these can also be seen as access points. We could see them as debris, but when we come into that rock or that place, that debris, we're accessing it from a completely different angle. Therefore, it creates a different vibratory response, or we create a different response to the vibration that this debris is offering, if that makes sense. So now it's that sonar, it's a ping, and we're able to go, okay, I see through it. And here's where I need to change my course, my trajectory. And you just fall into this flow, and which means we fall into more of you. We fall into more of me. We fall into that deeper realm of consistency. So that creates this fluid-like consistency that allows us to be less up and down. But again, it's part of the journey, is learning. For me, it's learning how I got there, to share that with others, and to learn and to see what I experienced as I was going through it so that I could share it with others. That's just my journey. Everybody's got different, nuggets, bits of information, bandwidths to share with the whole pie. Okay, I'm going to end on that note. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and in love and light, namaste.